Shooba dooba dooba doo boo boo ba dooba doo 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 doo. I'm so floaty. Dead Space is a franchise that a lot of people talked highly about to me all the time. They said it was a scary, immersive, action-packed experience with a pretty solid story to boot. Personally, I'll out myself right now. I've only played the third game in the original series before the remake, and I did it co-op. But to me, it was pretty good. People outright tell me that the third game in the installment lost all the charm of the previous two and wasn't really a Dead Space game. And to me, that seems fair, as after playing the reboot, it's really hard to draw any lines or similarities. I'm a bit of a critic when it comes to the remakes of games. A lot of the time I see them as pointless or just a way for the studio to make an easy buck, and generally a lot of them are pretty lackluster and bad. It's not that I don't think there are good remakes, it's just that the effort that's put into them usually doesn't qualify as a remake. The last good one I can think of that really floored me with how much effort the development team put into it was Resident Evil. That game was freaking fantastic and I loved every single minute of it. Needless to say, I had high expectations when I heard Dead Space was getting a reboot. Having never played the original game, I felt like this was my opportunity to see what all the hype was about and to get to see what type of horrors awaited me. Apparently, the perspective of someone who hasn't ever played the original playing a rebooted and new version of a game is a bit of a rarity. I have no nostalgia to pump up my score, no rose-tinted goggles to speak of, and nothing biased based on anything in the past. So now the question is, did I get the shit scared out of me in Dead Space? Was it fun? Was it all that it was hyped up to be? Man, you bet your ass it was. Dead Space is an experience we don't get much these days anymore. It's a scare-filled, claustrophobic, intense, over-the-shoulder action horror game that delivers on all those fronts exceptionally well. I didn't think a game like this, after everything else I've played that's horrified me, like Shenmue 3, would get to me, but this title definitely did at multiple points through my playthrough. The atmosphere, ambience, lighting, visuals, everything just blends together so perfectly well to build the world that Isaac is trudging through, with so much visual storytelling thrown in for good measure. Story-wise, you play as an engineer named Isaac, tasked with accompanying a crew of security officers and other engineers to a ship called the Ishimura, a massive planet cracker ship that's been sending out distress calls. Your job is simple. You're supposed to land, fix whatever issues they're having, and go about your merry way, and you're excited to see your girlfriend or wife or whomever that's working there, Nicole, as it's been so long since you've been able to hug her and whatever, you know, a little bit more than that. However, upon arriving, you quickly, and I mean very quickly, realize that things are not so cash money on the Ishimura, as your security team is ambushed by horribly disfigured flesh abominations that murder the hell out of your friends. Now, Isaac is a character that doesn't take that sort of shit lightly and decides it's now his problem, with the rest of the game revolving around him running around, blowing the limbs off of flesh monstrosities, and doing everything in his power to save Nicole and get the ship operational again to save everyone from this outbreak. You'll also find the origin of the outbreak, who was responsible for it, and what it means for the future of humanity, but that's far less important than just dismembering everything nonstop. Deck systems keycard. Oh shit! Oh, wiggle worms! Wiggle worms down, eliminated. Wiggle worms eliminated. Visually, this game looks sick. Not just sick in the sense of grotesque, which it also does, but sick in the sense of awesome in every sense of the word. I'll outright state that I've never experienced any frame drops, technical issues, lag, graphical problems, nothing, and the game runs superbly well even back on the 2000 series of NVIDIA cards. On the 3000 series, I ran over 150 FPS on Ultra with everything maxed, and across the consoles, there seems to be no issues with optimization as of me writing this. The character models are superb, the weapons themselves are immaculate, and the world you're surrounded by is one of the best ones that we've seen in a long while, something that genuinely looks like it was designed by people that knew what they needed to do to bring back the vibes of the original title. It's a dark, gritty, disgusting, horror-filled local with so many different locations to explore, and it genuinely feels like a massive space complex with everything interconnected together. It's always refreshing when you get the different areas you'd come to expect in a facility like this, and none of them look out of place or like they don't belong. The same rust-colored tinge of brown is everywhere, but not in a bad way. It's just visually appealing and works for not only the narrow corridors, but also the giant expanses you'll traverse while playing. Some of the best looking experiences of the game actually involve even going out of the ship into space, with extremely well done effects usually accompanying you with explosions that cause decompression. There's so many cool looking moments in this remake that stick with you, and the beats never stop coming until the very final chapter. All backed up by some of the best looking enemies I've seen in a long while. I was told that this is a complete remake of the ship from the first game in the sense that the layout and places you need to go through are completely different, so that's cool. I could genuinely say that it was super solid the whole way through. It's a non-stop visual barrage of things happening and stuff going on, all backed up by some of the best looking enemies I've seen in a long while. Remember the fleshy abominations I mentioned earlier that killed your friends when you first get to the station? Well, they're everywhere, and there are a lot of variations of them. You've got generic 4-limb murder machines made from the dead corpses of the crew, ultra abomination versions of those that can smash you into pulp, dead genetically engineered babies that crawl on walls and make fucked up noises at you, and numerous other gross things, all unique in their own way. Bosses also look great and have their own themed rooms, with each boss being entirely unique and deserving of the title of boss. I love when games don't just copy paste bosses as upscaled lesser enemies, and the bosses in Dead Space are really cool. Sound design is top notch. I won't go into too much detail talking about it, but it's very effective at making you feel unsettled, and the musical scores, the few that there are, really work in the game's favor at setting the mood. My favorite part of the whole entire soundscape is how it so heavily complements the visuals of the game, with audio logs you pick up while exploring talking about the very things that you're seeing around you. It was great to pick up a log talking about individual experiments and then seeing a carnage of what happens on the tape before you. Visual storytelling with audio elements thrown in is pretty awesome. Gameplay in Dead Space consists of your standard third-person over-the-shoulder aiming, with one button to aim and another to shoot respectively. You have your standard alternate fire for some weapons and melee when enemies get too close. A lot of games fail in making this sort of combat satisfying. Dead Space, however, doesn't fail in the slightest. Everything about the shooting revolves around aiming to dismember enemies who can't really die in any other way. Every enemy in the game has weak spots for you to shoot or that you need to exploit, and the various different unique weapons that you stumble across all exploit these exploits in their own unique ways. Add this with constant lighting failures due to power issues, extremely tight corridors you need to maneuver in, and perpetual ambushes, and oh man, does this game's combat get your blood pumping. That's about right. Perfect. Just as planned, chat. The primary gun that you come across at the beginning of the game is Isaac's signature weapon, the plasma cutter, and it's going to be your bread and butter throughout your entire playthrough. I loved this thing and never got tired of it. I used it for about 80% of the kills I got, and it was just satisfying to blow and chop parts off of enemies nonstop with it. Other weapons you get are things ranging from flamethrowers to giant mining lasers. I believe there's 7 in total with one hidden one, all of them having their own uses and appealing to certain types of people. Not one of them is bad, some are better than others of course, but with upgrades any of them can shine and be an effective tool of death. Burn! Oh, my butt! Oh, Isaac, no! Ah, you fucker. Guys, flamethrower sucks! Flamethrower sucks! Speaking of upgrades, they're the primary way you're going to get stronger and be able to fight bigger baddies while you progress through. Dead Space has a huge emphasis on exploration and backtracking, with various levels of security clearance being given to you through your play, allowing you to access areas that you couldn't the first time you went through. These upgrade modules and gun parts that further enhance your weapons are hidden and stored everywhere, and they're definitely worth getting as they unlock special features for each and every gun. One such example of a special unlock is an upgrade that makes your plasma cutter do damage over time, burning enemies for a lot of damage based on how many shots you land. Ammo and items are extremely scarce in a playthrough, so stuff like this is important. You'll pretty much only be able to max out 2.5 guns in one run. Your suit also has upgrades you can spend upgrade modules on, doing things like increasing your health, oxygen, so on and so forth. Better suit upgrades that enable more inventory are found naturally while playing through and exploring the Ishimura. They're pretty hard to miss and absolutely worth spending your hard-earned credits on at terminals because inventory space is worth its weight in gold. Isaac will acquire 2 power-ups throughout your run, Stasis and Pull, both having their own uses and being incredibly fun to use in certain circumstances. Pull lets you solve puzzles and impale enemies with random objects for no energy cost, while Stasis lets you freeze hazards and enemies in time and let you do whatever you want to them while they're stuck. These powers add some layers to what I consider to be pretty simple combat. I enjoyed them, although I found myself not using Stasis much at all when fighting enemies outside of bosses. Dead Space's difficulty is a bit of a toss-up. Personally, I found playing even on hard to be a walk in the park on PC in my first playthrough. I think in total I only died maybe 5 times across 15 hours of total gameplay, which is about how long your first run is, which isn't really a lot of deaths, but there are some ways to make it a lot more difficult on yourself if you want to. I personally found the game to be incredibly difficult to play with while using a controller, as aiming was a completely different level of hard without aim assist turned on, and it really got me hurt a lot more than it helped. There is aim assist that you can turn on if you are using a controller, but it's more center mass based, which doesn't help at all against your standard fare of baddies as you need to shoot specific spots. Impossible mode, though, is where the true challenge lies, only unlockable after beating the game once on any difficulty. This shit is crazy, and you will die a lot, with most enemies able to instantly kill Isaac regardless of how much health he has. There's lots more enemies around and a lot less ammo available too, really pushing you to the limit to be able to complete it once it's unlocked, but you do get something special if you do. There's a New Game Plus mode, something that I didn't expect when I played through, a mode that actually has a secret ending if you do certain things. Starting New Game Plus awards you with cool armor and lets you keep all your previous upgrades. I had a blast just blitzing through once more with everything, upgrading most of the stuff that I hadn't been able to upgrade before. It was good. It was good all around. Good on the devs for having this much in at launch and not adding a New Game Plus game as a DLC, like some games do. One thing that really did grind on me though while I was playing, and I get that this was a design choice, is something that I mentioned earlier. There is way too much backtracking in this game. I understand why it exists, as a space station is a pretty limited space, but it really did feel like I was doing it way too much. Sometimes returning to the same area 4 or 5 times just to unlock older doors. Don't get me wrong, backtracking is hard to do right in any sense of the word, and this wasn't the worst instance of it ever, but it was definitely something that I complained about while playing the game over and over. With all that said and done, it's time to do what we always do in these reviews and break the game down into separate scores. So let's get it done. Gameplay gets a 9 out of 10. It's great fun, action-packed, terrifying at times, and extremely immersive. The controls are responsive and everything about this game's playstyle is enjoyable. Backtracking holds it back from being that 10 out of 10 though. Story gets a 9 out of 10. It's the best it could be in a game like this. There's so much hidden in audio logs and it's all just great. And it sets up for the remake of the second game flawlessly should they ever decide to do it. The characters are likable too. Graphics get a 9 out of 10. This game doesn't set any records or blow my mind like Callisto Protocol's graphics did, but they're superb for what they were going for, and honestly, I loved every environment. It's total eye candy if you're a fan of the original series. Audio gets a 9 out of 10. It is superb. I didn't gush too long on it because it's not super standout, but it really adds to the entire experience. The voice acting, weapon sounds, enemy sounds, they all work with the environment they're designed for. Fantastic. And finally, value gets an 8 out of 10. It's about 13 to 15 hours long for the price of $60, and the New Game Plus really adds a lot to that. It's not the best bang for your buck I've ever played, but it's extremely satisfying, and I definitely don't feel like I wasted my money. Overall, this is going to lead me to give the Dead Space remake a super strong 9 out of 10, with the fact that nothing really blew my mind, leaving it from getting that legendary 10 out of 10 status. It does everything superbly well, but nothing is what I'd call genre defining this time around, but it doesn't at all hold me back from saying that you should absolutely get this game and give it a shot. It appeals to fans of the original series and people who have never played it before, and it is a serious contender for Game of the Year as it's a true remake and not a reskin, something that I seriously enjoyed. Anyway, that's going to be it for this review. If you liked the video, hit that freaking like button and share this video around. Otherwise, go back and watch other videos on the channel and let us know what you'd like video-wise down in the comments down below. And let me know what you thought of the retrospectives recently that we've been doing, because we put a lot of effort into them. Thanks for watching. Until the next video, this is Delrith, and we'll be seeing you. Bye.